if you want to do any kind of basic graphic design at all, there are going to be times when you want to add text to your images. And to add text to an image, what you're going to use is you're going to use the text tool. And your text tool is located in the same area that your paintbrush and your eraser and your gradient are. Down here at the bottom, you have this T. And that's your text tool. And right now it says horizontal type tool. And if you go ahead and click on that, or if you want to just use a shortcut, hit T on your computer, and that will bring up the text tool options panel. And right now you'll see that you are in the text tool by coming over to your photo, and when you get on top of your image, your cursor is going to turn into what's called an I-beam. And you take your I-beam and you place it over where you want to start entering text, and you click. You will get a little flashing cursor which is showing you that you can enter text there. And when you're done with entering your text, you come down here to commit current operation, and now you have some text entered on your photo. Now, if you don't really like what you did with your text, you don't like where it is, or you don't like the color, you can go back in here. You come back here and you just move the text box around. And that's how you place it where you want to place it. But you may be thinking, well, I want to go back into the text so that I can edit it. So how do you do that? Well, there's a couple of ways to do that. You can either go into your text tool and try to double click in the same area. And if you double click into the right area, you'll go directly into that. But that can be a little bit tricky because sometimes you'll actually not be able to get in there because it will create a new text layer. So the easier way and the better way to do it is if you're in here in the move tool, come up to the layer, and you'll have an individual layer for text. Text always sits on its own layer. And go over the thumbnail and double click on that thumbnail, and that will immediately take you back in to your text layer and select your text so that you can edit it. And let's go ahead and select the whole text. And we'll come down here to our option panels to talk about some of the options that you can select actually before you even enter text to change the look and how the text runs. So the first thing that you will notice is that you have a lot of different options for your text and a lot of different ways for the text to run. You could do it horizontally, you can do it vertically, you can do it in a shape, you can do it in a selection. For right now, horizontal is just fine. Next, you have this box right here, and it shows Myriad Pro. This is the font that you're currently using. And if you come over here to this drop-down menu, click on that, that will show you all the different fonts that are available. So you can just scroll through this until you find a font that you like. And then next here you have the font style. Right now it's regular, but if you once again go into this drop-down, you can also choose bold. And different fonts have different options for the styles. This one you only have regular and bold. But if you go to a different font, like say Trebuchet, and then you come down here, you'll see that you can select from italic, bold, or bold italic. So different fonts give you different options for what you can actually do with them. And that's something to keep in mind, at least from the font menu. There are other ways to get around with this, but for now just know that this is going to change based on the font. Let's go with just a basic bold right now. Actually, let's go back to regular. And then next to the font style, you have this, which is how large your font size is. 100 points is really large for a type, but because you have an image and it's very large, you're going to have to make the font size large in relation to the large digital image. So I actually think this is pretty small, so I'm going to bring it up to 200 points. And now you see that you have a much larger text that works a little bit better with this particular image. Now, just like the paintbrush or the paint bucket tool, when you go ahead and you start typing text, it is going to end up being the color of your foreground swatch. Well, if you don't like that, you can go in and you can change the color by going here to your swatch panel and just changing up the color of your text. Now, one thing you should know is right now I don't actually have the text selected, so when I change the color, it changed the foreground color, but it didn't change that. So go ahead and select all the thing and change the color of your text right there in the swatch panel. Next, you have your leading. Generally a good idea to keep it to auto. Another way that you can change kind of the style of your text, you have these buttons here, and this will create simulated bold, italics, underline, and strike through. And all you have to do is just click on the one you want. There's an italic, there's a bold, and that will apply it to the image. Next on the list, you have this, which is your alignment. Currently you're aligned left, but you can change it to align center or align right. If you're working with just a small amount of text like this doesn't really matter too much, but if you actually have a full paragraph, it's going to matter more. So this is where you do your character alignment. And then finally, you have the ability to toggle the text orientation. Right now it's horizontal, but you can toggle it to vertical. And finally right here, this button, that'll create a warp text, so if you need to wrap it around something, you can do so by doing this. But you need to make sure that one of your faux bows or italics is not on your text before you do it, because it just has problems with that. So that's the basics of your text options panel. Now, one more thing that you might want to know is that if you want to do a paragraph of text instead of doing just a short amount like this, what you can do is actually, let's get ahead and get rid of this text by deleting the layer, and then come back to our text tool. And this time, instead of just clicking inside the image, we're going to go ahead and we're going to click and drag. And when you click and drag, you're actually making a text box. So there you have a text box. And as you can see, you have your blinking cursor again. And right now our point size on our font is really high. But if we come down to say 30 points, then you're going to see a little tiny blinking cursor right there. And you can start just typing in, and there you go. You have an entire text box. And it should wrap automatically, and there it does. So you don't have to hit return when you end a line. So that's how you enter a paragraph. Now let's go ahead and play with the vertical type tool. Now this is exactly like doing horizontal. When you come in here, you start typing in, and instead of running horizontally, you're just going to run your text vertically. But maybe you don't want to do that, and maybe you want to do something else more interesting with your text. Well, you can also create a type mask. And if you go to this tool right here, or this tool right here, you have your choice to do either a vertical type mask or a horizontal type mask. So let's go ahead and do a horizontal type mask. And what you're doing is you're creating a selection out of text. So it's not actually going to put in the text, it's just going to create a selection out of the text. So go ahead in here and go ahead and click, and your screen's going to turn red. Now the red is the color that Photoshop Elements uses to show that an area is masked off. And when you go ahead and you put in, I don't know, a word like diva here, you can see that it looks like you have a red background with, you know, transparent text, but you don't actually. Once you commit this type layer, you see that you now have a selection with marching ants. And once you have that selection done, you can now come in here to your gradient tool, and let's go ahead and go normal and 100% and go across that. And as you can see, now the gradient only fills in to that selected area. So by making a text mask, you can actually make a selection out of text, which you can go in and paint, which gives you a little more capability in what you can do with the text. Now there's two more tools that we need to talk about, and the first one is Text on a Shape tool. And when you click on this, you're going to get over in your options panel the options to create several different kinds of shapes. So let's go ahead and create an ellipse, and then you're going to go into your image and you're going to click and drag to create a shape. And now once you have the shape created, you're going to come in and you're going to go over the shape until you get this I-beam, and then click, and that's where you're starting your text. So wherever you want to start your text, you go to that part of the shape until you get the I-beam, and then click to get it started. And then go ahead and just start typing your text, and as you see, the text is going to form around the shape. And you move it down to make it a little more interesting. Now, the final thing that you can do is you can go ahead and go back to your text tool and do this create text on a custom path tool. Now, the first thing you're going to do when you use this tool is you see you have this little pen looking cursor there, and you use this to actually create the path that you want the text to flow on. And maybe we want the text to look like it's flowing kind of in the path this person's walking. So you're going to start here and you're going to click and then drag and just draw your path like so. And once you have your path drawn, you're going to go ahead and commit the changes, and then you're going to go back over like you did with your create text on a shape tool. Go over the path until you get your I-beam, and you get your I-beam where you want to start your text. So let's start our text right there, and then go ahead and start typing in. And as you can see, you have your text following this custom path that you made. And that's a little bunched together, but you get the idea. That's an interesting thing that you can do in Photoshop Elements.